Indira Gandhi, India's first and only female Prime Minister, is one of the most influential and controversial figures in the Indian history. Born into the influential Nehru family, Indira Gandhi's early life was marked by her proximity to India's freedom struggle. She was deeply influenced by her father Jawaharlal Nehru, but also by her mother Kamala Nehru, whose frail health and early death deeply affected her. Indira Gandhi's education was unconventional due to her family's involvement in the independence movement. She studied at various institutions including Vishwabharati University in Shantiniketan, founded by Rabindranath Tagore, and Somerville College, Oxford. Indira Gandhi got married to Firoz Gandhi in 1942. The couple had two sons, Rajiv Gandhi and Sanjay Gandhi. But Firoz Gandhi's untimely death in 1960 left Indira Gandhi devastated. She later focused entirely on her political career. Before becoming Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi served as her father's personal assistant and was deeply involved in the working of Congress Party. She was often seen as Nehru's eyes and ears and played a significant role in shaping his domestic and foreign policies. She was appointed as the Congress Party's president in 1959, a role in which she began to build her own political base. While Indira Gandhi is often remembered for the emergency and the Indo-Pakistan War of 1971, her contribution to agriculture and environmental conservation are less widely recognized. She was instrumental in the Green Revolution, which transformed India from a food-deficient country to a food-surplus nation. She also had a deep concern for environmental issues, as evidenced by her role in the establishment of wildlife sanctuaries and national parks, and her speech at the 1972 United Nations Conference on the Human Environment in Stockholm. She had a deep connection with rural India, and her slogan, Garibi Hatao, resonated with millions, although its implementation had fixed result. Indira Gandhi's decision to conduct India's first nuclear test, codenamed Smiling Buddha, in 1974 was a turning point in India's strategic and defense policies. The test established India as a nuclear power and was seen as a bold move, especially in the context of the Cold War. Early in her political career, Indira Gandhi enjoyed considerable support from the media, which played a role in her rise in power. However, as her policies and actions became more controversial, the media's tone began to shift. During emergency, the government imposed strict censorship on the press. Newspapers were forced to submit their content for approval before publication, leading to widespread suppression of dissent and critical reporting. Several newspapers and magazines that were critical of the government were shut down, and many journalists were arrested. The press was effectively muzzled, and only those outlets that toed the government line were allowed to operate. The government also used state-controlled media, particularly All India Radio and Doordarshan, as tools for propaganda, projecting a favorable image of the government and suppressing any dissenting voices. The state-run television and radio channels were used as propaganda to broadcast pro-government messages and suppress any news of opposition or dissent. While many prominent newspapers were forced into silence or compliance during the emergency, some journalists and editors engaged in subtle forms of resistance. They would use coded language, metaphors, or seemingly innocuous stories to convey dissenting messages. These acts were risky as the government closely monitored media outlets but they kept the spirit of free press alive in a time of heavy censorship. In addition to subversive journalism within mainstream outlets, there were underground publications that sprang up during the emergency. Many journalists who refused to comply with the government censorship were arrested and in some cases tortured. These journalists were often held without trial under draconian law like the Maintenance of Internal Security Act. Newspapers were required to submit their content for approval before publication, leading to the suppression of news critical of the government. Newspapers that refused to comply with the government's directives faced shutdowns. The most notable case was of the Indian Express and the Statesman, which were vocal of their criticism of the government's action. The government responded by cutting off electricity to their offices and withhold advertisements. On June 28, 1975, the Indian Express published an editorial with a blank space where the editorial would normally appear. These blank editorials became powerful symbols of resistance against the government's attempt to silence dissent. This was a symbolic protest against the censorship imposed by the government, highlighting the suppression of free speech. Notable journalists like Kuldeep Nair were detained under the Maintenance of Internal Security Act for their critical writings. The owner of the Indian Express, Ramnath Goenka, became a central figure in the fight against censorship. Despite facing immense pressure, including threat of imprisonment and financial ruin, he continued to oppose the government's action. After the emergency was lifted, the Janata Party came to power in 1977. Efforts were made to reform the media. Indira Gandhi was defeated in the 1977 general elections. The media experienced a revival. The period after the emergency saw a surge in investigative journalism and a more assertive press, which sought to hold the government accountable. After the emergency was lifted in 1977, the media began to reflect on the period of repression. Publications like the Illustrated Weekly of India and India Today published in-depth reports on the state of the press during the emergency, highlighting the challenges faced and the resilience shown by the journalists and editors. While Indian media was heavily censored, foreign correspondents continued to report on the situation in India. Reporters from international media like the New York Times and The Guardian provided the world with insights into the realities of the emergency, highlighting the extent of repression in India. Many journalists were harassed, threatened, and even imprisoned during the emergency. Notable among them was Arun Shore, who later became a prominent editor and politician. Shore was forced to leave his job at the Indian Express due to the pressure from the government, but he continued to work behind the scene, supporting the anti-emergency movement. After the emergency was lifted in 1977, the media played a significant role in exposing the atrocities committed during the period. The stories of forced sterilization, political imprisonment, and the misuse of power were extensively covered, leading to a public outcry and contributing to the defeat of Indira Gandhi in the subsequent elections. The emergency remained a dark chapter in the Indian democratic history, and the role of the media during this period is a testament to the resilience and courage of journalists who, despite facing tremendous pressure, sought to uphold the truth. Indira Gandhi remained a complex figure in the Indian history, celebrated for her contribution to national security and agricultural self-sufficiency, but at the same time also criticized for her roles in the emergency. These lesser-known aspects of her life and career helped to paint a more nuanced picture of a leader who shaped the course of modern India. The emergency period remains a significant chapter in the history of Indian media, often cited as a cautionary tale about the dangers of censorship and importance of press freedom. The Indira Gandhi Memorial is a museum established to commemorate India's first and the only female Prime Minister, Indira Gandhi. It is housed in the building where Gandhi lived with her family during her premiership and where she was assassinated. Indira Gandhi's assassination on October 31, 1984 by her Sikh bodyguards was a tragic end to her political career. The assassination was a result of the controversial Operation Blue Star, which she has ordered to flush out militants from the Golden Temple in Amritsar, leading to widespread anger among the Sikh community. Her death led to the widespread anti-Sikh riot, one of the darkest episodes in modern Indian history, with thousands of Sikhs killed in violence. The stories of the struggle serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of press freedom in a democracy. The tales of Indira Gandhi is visually recorded in the Indira Gandhi Memorial. This memorial became an asset to revisit Indira Gandhi's tenure, her success, her failure, her struggle, and her last few days. Namaste.